There is not much time. Olympus needs you. Kratos.
Athena! What madness has befallen us?
The god of the sun has been torn from the sky, without their master to reign there. The fire states have driven the sunshine into the earth. This temple on which you stand is the chariot of Helios. The Titan Atlas has been freed from the pits of Tartarus, and has taken my brother Helios from his rightful place in the sky.
I grow tired of the god's request, Athena. I have given enough. Now take these nightmares from my head.
You will earn your freedom in time.
Helios holds within him the power of the sun, a power so great it can destroy the world. It cannot be trusted in the hands of a Titan.
And without Helios, there is no way to keep Morpheus from seizing permanent power. You must find Helios and return him to the sky.
Walk through the gates of Olympus, and you will find me. Hurry, Kratos. Even now, my brother suffers at the hand of Atlas.
Only his light can release the grasp of Morpheus.
Athena! Athena!
Okay, let's try this again. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Play God of War Chains of Olympus. This will be my second attempt now at recording this. Apologies in advance, they're doing some landscaping outside of my apartment building today, so if any outside noises start to interfere, as they sometimes do, that'll be why. Anyway, welcome back. We are now in the Caves of Olympus. This is an adjacent area to the Temple of Helios, basically a continuation of the Temple of Helios itself. It's just here to, break up the aesthetic sameness of the temple. Even though the temple is a very well-designed, well-done area, it could feel a little samey after a while. So we have the Caves of Olympus to kind of break up that potential monotony. And of course we have here a white chest. As I mentioned earlier, there is going to be a collectibles guide at the end of this, as there will be for every God of War game, for all the locations of all of the white chests, in this case the location of all the Gorgon's eyes, the Phoenix feathers, and just the white chests that contain, nothing but red orbs, like those two chests. Those are red orb chests, but you get what I mean. There's some white chests that just have red orbs and don't have Gorgon's eyes or Phoenix feathers at all for some reason. So yeah, welcome to Chains of Olympus's one and only swimming section. Similar to Ascension, there is only one major swimming section to speak of in this game, though in this game, compared to Ascension, this is actually a major swimming section where you're here for a few minutes as opposed to a few seconds in the case of Ascension's swimming level. There I'm just exploring to make sure there's no other chests and stuff. Remember, for the God of War, ABE, always be exploring everything just to make sure that there isn't any extra red orbs or Gorgon's eyes or Phoenix feathers off the beaten path. Anyway, before we can actually start swimming, we need a device to actually help us swim. In this case, it's Triton's Lance. In Ascension, it was the Poseidon's Ice magic that we got earlier on in that game. But in this game, we have to get Triton's Lance, which allows us to engage with the swimming mechanics of the game. In this case, swimming up, swimming down, and doing the underwater dash. Unlike Ascension's swimming section, the Chains of Olympus swimming section, at the very least, attempts to put to use all of the mechanics of swimming, including the dashing, including the swimming up, the swimming down, and of course the fact that, something we didn't see in Ascension at all, the fact that you can open chests under the water, as Kratos is demonstrating right now with this red orb chest. And as he will demonstrate once more with the white chest right next to it, that is one of those white chests that does not contain a Gorgon's eye or a Phoenix feather, but just has a bunch of red orbs, and in this case some health magic too. I don't know why, it just does. Anyway, this is more evidence of Chains of Olympus doing something that I was talking about, rambling about, whatever, in the earlier episodes of trimming the fat, as it were. Chains of Olympus, as you may or may not recall, came out post God of War 2. So by this point in the series, the teams, both Ready at Dawn and Santa Monica, were aware of what people liked and didn't like about the God of War franchise. So that's why in Chains of Olympus, for example, we only have that one and only beam, quote-unquote, puzzle, where you just walk across that one beam, then you get the Joker trophy for completing all the beam puzzles in the game. Due to the scope of the game as well, certain things had to be cut down, so there's only that one major section with the stairs, the revolving stairs that kind of hide a loading screen. That's the thing that we're going to be seeing a lot more in classic God of War games, especially when we get into God of War 1 and 2. We're going to see that a lot. There's only one in Chains of Olympus, partly because of scope, but partly because they're starting to trim the fat of what's necessary and not necessary for a streamlined, accessible God of War experience. Not that God of War was never, streamlined and never accessible. It always was, but they're just making it even more so. Like you'll notice in Ascension, we never had a single segment where we went up rotating stairs to mask a loading screen, because it just wasn't necessary anymore by that point in the team's opinions. And, by the time we got to Ascension, there was also absolutely no beam puzzles at all, which, again, just something that they trimmed the fat on completely to make a more accessible experience. In the case of Chains of Olympus, they had to scale back the scope, obviously, because this was originally a handheld title for the PSP. One of the PSP's best handheld titles, has a Metacritic rating of 91, so it's quite good. And I just rambled my entire way through the entire one and only underwater segment, but yeah, we're done with the underwater segment. Just a nice little pace breaker, just something to change things up a little bit briefly for a couple of minutes. And now we're on our way to continue on with our adventure and get into our first fight in the Caves of Olympus. Our first fight is going to be with a mythical creature, the Minotaur. The Minotaur is weird because most of the Minotaurs in this game that you encounter are fine. Like, there's a really easy way to deal with them that we're going to see right now in this quote-unquote practice battle with our first Minotaur. Every single Minotaur in this game behaves like this Minotaur is, where if you're close enough to the Minotaur, it's going to do the headbutt. If you're a medium distance away, it will do that sword swipe attack, and if you're very far away, it'll actually charge you. You won't see the charge yet, you'll see the charge later on in other videos. The problem with the Minotaur is that while this Minotaur behaves the way you're seeing now, where if you're close enough, just does the headbutt over and over again, letting you roll out of the way to hit it over and over again until it dies. And while the next Minotaur will behave this way, and the Minotaur after that will behave this way, the last Minotaurs you fight in the game, in the final area, which we'll get to in episode 5, don't behave this way at all. They behave completely differently in the final area, and because of that, you will get very thrown off, and that final fight against 2 Minotaurs at the same time becomes more a game of chance than a game of knowing what you're doing, and I don't really like that about the Minotaurs. So, in theory, the Minotaurs are fine, because most of them behave the way you're seeing them behave right now. It's the Minotaurs later that present a bigger problem, because the Minotaurs of the very end do not behave like the Minotaurs of the present time. It's very strange. I don't know. This will be the longest episode of the series at nearly an hour, but we'll talk more about that after this upcoming cutscene where we meet Helios' sister. So I will see you after this cutscene. Bye-bye.
As Kratos entered the cave, Eos, goddess of dawn and sister to Helios, sat above him, visibly weakened by the absence of the sun.
All glory be to Lord Zeus for granting you safe passage to me.
The king of the gods does not aid me, Eos. I am but a slave to Zeus and Olympus.
Save my brother, Kratos, and he will convince Zeus to release you and rid you of the horrors of your past. I give you my word.
The gods have broken their word to me many times. Forgive me if I find it hard to believe your promises.
Be that as it may, Kratos. The primordial fire is almost out. Without Helios, the life-giving light of the world cannot be sustained. If you do not find him, only darkness and death awaits all of us.
Where has Atlas taken him?
I do not know, Kratos. Follow the passage out of the cave. Retrieve the fire, and it will light your path to the remaining steeds. They will guide you to their master. They will take you to my brother. May you go with the speed of Hermes, Ghost of Sparta.
Okay, so we have our directive. We have met Eos, Helios' sister. We got a bunch of implications in that. Like the fact that Kratos has, like, big adventures for the gods pretty often. And keeps hoping that they're going to finally get rid of his horrible memories of him murdering his wife and child. But they keep ducking away from that at every opportunity, so, you know, fuck them, I guess. There's a sneaky little white chest under the water here. What was I talking about before the cutscene? I was talking about the fact that this series is only going to be 5 episodes long, and this is going to be the longest episode. In this episode, we transition from the first half of the game, the easy half, the beginning-ish half of the game, where, you know, we're introduced to things, and things aren't really in a position to try and kill us, even on God mode, into the second half of the game, where I will begin to die plenty of times, as per the usual, because Chains of Olympus does set out to prove that it is just as much a God of War game as, you know, main console God of War games, and it succeeds at that. When we get into the second half of the game, it's going to feel very classic God of War with the difficulty and how things go and such. But yeah, good cutscene. We start losing the plot a little after that particular cutscene with Eos talking about Helios and getting him. Mostly because characters on screen don't really talk about him all that much anymore. By the way, that battle was fast-forwarded because the Sun Soldiers, you already know how to get these things to this point from the previous video. Yeah. We start losing the plot a bit here. I mean, obviously, our faithful narrator, who's been with us since Ascension and we'll be learning more about in later God of War games, does keep talking about Helios, but characters on screen kind of stop talking about Helios after this point, and, you know, we just start kind of losing the plot a little bit here while we're actually doing all this. We get back to it by the end, but we go a pretty long time before major updates to that again. There's going to be visual updates, but you may not realize that when they happen. Anyway, for now, we go ahead and get the Primordial Fire, which gives us a added ability for our Sun Shield, which is the Helios Reflect. Basically, we can now reflect projectiles just as we can parry up-close physical attacks. So they give us a little test here, these 3 awesome statues. All we have to do is just parry back their attacks, as you can see. Just hit the L1 button when, you know, their projectile attack gets close enough, and that'll be that. Destroying the 3 statues unlocks your second magic attack, so now not only do we have the ability to parry projectiles, we now have the ability to shoot projectiles as our second magic attack. I'm going to go ahead and immediately upgrade it to level 2. The level 3 upgrade is pretty unnecessary for this ability in God mode, but level 2 is pretty good. It's something you want to have as soon as possible if you have enough red orbs for it. Basically, you press R1 and square and you shoot orbs of light at people. Having it at level 2 allows you to do rapid fire, so you can shoot faster. I would recommend getting that as soon as possible because it's a very useful ability. Similar to the Ifrit level 2, where you can start mashing the circle button to do additional damage in a large area of effect. You want to get the Light of Dawn up to level 2 as soon as possible so that you can rapid fire your shots. Not that you'll be using this ability that much compared to the Ifrit, but you do want it at level 2, so that on the occasions that you do have to use this particular magic ability, you can use a much better version of it as compared to the level 1 version. 5 more Phoenix Feathers means we have our second magic upgrade. I mentioned before that by the time we finish this first half-ish part of the game, and we finish the Temple of Helios completely, we're basically going to be done with collectibles. In fact, I think in this... no, actually. In the very beginning of the next video, we're going to be done with getting all collectibles. This game is not that long.
You must hurry, Kratos.
Like I said before, Chains of Olympus is like half the length of a traditional God of War. So by the time we're finished with the first half of the game, we're basically going to have everything we need. Similar to Ascension, similar to most of the God of War games, if you're being enough of a... if you're hunting for collectibles actively, then by the time you finish the first half of the game, you're basically going to have everything you need to fully upgrade yourself. Went ahead and sped up that fight too, because again, we know how to deal with Sun Soldiers by this point. Yeah. And that's it. We're done with the Caves of Olympus already. I'm going to double check really quick just to make sure that the chests under the water and in the shore have still been opened, and they have, so there's no point in going back to double check on those. Any chests that you've opened in Chains of Olympus will remain open after once you come back to the same area. That's not the case in all the God of War games, because Chains of Olympus is so short. Basically, any chest you open is going to remain open for the rest of the time. It's not going to be like an Ascension where sometimes chests that you open are refilled when you come back to that area later on. Chains of Olympus is so short that that's just not going to happen. We're back at the Temple of Helios. This is the second half of the Temple of Helios, much shorter and much more straightforward than the first half. Now that we have all of our abilities and all the information that we need, all we have to do now is just activate the last two steeds to get the Sun Chariot moving again, so we can find out where Helios actually is and actually save him and stuff. I went ahead and broke that statue because I forgot to break that statue the first time that I came through that area. But now we just have to go ahead and activate the other two steeds, and it's going to be really fast, really straightforward. Again, just a sign of the small scope. We don't have time to stick around and explore this place any more than we already have. We've already explored it pretty thoroughly, so now we're just going to wrap it up and move on to the next major area of the game. Before we do that, though, we have to do another elevator sequence. We may recall that going down this elevator, we had to fight those 6 Sun Soldiers. Going up is much easier, because all you have to do is take on a fuck ton of harpy heads, or harplings, or whatever you want to call them. I speed it up because this is all the fight is. It's just grabbing harpy heads and just smashing them on the ground, killing them immediately, getting a bunch of red orbs. Try to keep your combo going as much as possible so you can keep getting plus 10 orbs. That way when you're done with this little encounter, you have plenty of red orbs to hopefully upgrade a new item or two. You'll also have some red orb chests here to accentuate just how many red orbs you should have collected from that one particular encounter. Just a nice way to top yourself up on red orbs before moving on. And I think I now have enough to upgrade another weapon. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna upgrade the Blades of Chaos now to level 3, which is great. In terms of red orbs in Chains of Olympus, we're going to have more than enough to upgrade everything in this game. We're going to have excess amounts because of one thing that we do at the very end of the game that isn't a cheat or like an infinite red orb glitch. It's just a thing that happens in Chains of Olympus' story. We're going to have so many red orbs by the end of this that it doesn't matter if we miss a few. We're going to get screwed out of a few because of a particular glitch that we'll get into in the next episode. But even that, we're going to have more than enough red orbs to top ourselves up on everything and be the most powerful Kratos that we can be in this particular game. Anyway, now we move on to the puzzle that will activate us our second of 3 steeds for the Sun Chariot. So here we go. It's a short little cutscene right now.
And again, the melody returned, and it almost seemed familiar.
Any complaints I may have about the external plot, about the actual hunt for Helios and Atlas and all that stuff, I have no such complaints with the internal plot, the actual Kratos struggle that this game covers. By the way, I do terribly in this fight. I don't die, but Jesus, I almost die because I just do a really, really, really bad job with this fight. And it all has to do with messing up the QTEs for those Sun Soldier long-range attackers, this is the only time we meet and fight these Sun Soldier long-range attackers. I do a really bad job with the QTEs. I messed it up like 2 times, like you saw back there, and I'm almost dead because of it. Again, when it comes to QTEs in God of War Chains of Olympus, especially God mode, don't bother for some of the enemies. I do with these guys because it's literally just one button that you have to press. I messed it up 2 times. I don't know how. It just has something to do with my bad PS3 controller, I guess. But it is worth doing the QTEs for these guys because compared to like the Morpheus dogs or the Satyrs, you don't have to do any crazy swirling of the analog stick or any easy swirling of the analog stick like you do for those guys. Yeah. Still, messing up the QTEs is pretty devastating in Chains of Olympus, so try to limit how many QTEs you do. I just wanted to speed things up, so that's why I went for it, but I probably shouldn't have, because I did almost die. Just by messing up a couple of times in the QTEs. This is our next big puzzle room for Chains of Olympus. There is another white chest here. You want to make sure you want to get that open for another Gorgon Eye. And there is a red orb chest that we're going to be getting. And then that's it. We just move on to the actual next puzzle of the game, which is this giant room. So let's go ahead and get that red orb chest. And there we go. Okay, now we can go ahead and start the actual puzzle of the room. First off, here is Notos, the South Wind. The second of the 3 chariots, of the 3 steeds for the chariot of Helios. Our sun. To activate the puzzle, we just go ahead and place our sun shield there, as we've been doing this whole time. Next up, we're going to have this beam of light here. We want to go ahead and direct it into both the top left and the top right bell-shaped door thing that we're shining the light into to bring out these 2 particular statues. This is a room that first of all requires us to actually open all 4 doors, though you may notice that we can't actually open all 4 doors because that light beam on its own only stretches as far as the top left and the top right door. We have to find a way to get that beam down to the bottom right and the bottom left door, and thankfully we are able to do that thanks to the fact that these statues have their own sun shields that reflect sunlight. So we're going to go ahead and just place the statue in the correct spot, so that way when we shine the light on it, it will reflect it into the bottom left door here to get us our 3rd statue. And then if we're fast enough, we can go ahead and just kind of cheat the system a little. Like normally we'd have to move that statue all the way to the other side to the bottom right button, and then move the sunbeam all the way to the other side to shine the light onto that door. But if we're quick enough, we can just kind of cheese it, as you see. Now that we have all 4 statues, we have to place them on all 4 of the buttons. So basically, the 2 statues that are facing up, that are looking towards the horse, you want to make sure you put them in the bottom left and bottom right buttons. It doesn't matter which one goes to which. Just make sure that both the statues that are looking up in the direction of the horse are placed on the bottom 2 buttons. And then the statue that is looking towards the right, the statue that we're moving right now, you want that in the top left, and the statue looking towards the left, you want that in the top right. So basically the configuration that I have now is the correct configuration to solve this particular puzzle. And then to wrap it up, all you want to do is just shine the light in the center, and we will create another sunspot where we can shine our shield of Helios and fire it into the horse to actually, get things moving and get things activated again. So now the horse is activated, we rise it up, we reveal that little spot for the sun shield, which again we will place it into and get our 2nd beam of light to activate our 2nd chariot. All that to say, not a bad puzzle. Here's a quick little cutscene. Okay. That's the 2nd one. The 3rd one is going to be even easier to get to because there's like absolutely no time at all. There's absolutely no break at all between activating the second steed and the third steed. Again, just another sign that this game has a smaller scope and some cut content, especially in this area, the Temple of Helios. There's absolutely no break at all between activating the second steed and the third steed. After we're told by Eos where to go and what to do, we basically just wrap up the Temple of Helios in like 15 minutes, with like absolutely no break at all. It's crazy just how quickly we're done here as compared to how long it took us to get in here and get this far in the first place. Now that we know what to do, we finish in like 2 minutes. So that's fun. Real quick though, before we do, we're going to go ahead and open some more chests and break some more stuff. Remember, ABE, God of War, always be exploring. You want to make sure you're exploring every single nook and crevice so that you can get every single white chest, so you can get every single collectible as soon as possible, so you can be as strong as possible as soon as possible. This third episode is nearly an hour long. I mentioned earlier this is going to be the longest episode of the series. This episode transitions us from the beginning half of the game, which we're almost done with now, to the second half of the game, which is going to be far more difficult than this, and it's going to be a lot more like classic God of War difficulty for the second half, so that's exciting. It's also going to be a little frustrating in some parts, but exciting nonetheless to get into some classic God of War-esque stuff from here on out. Yeah, really well done game. I really like Chains of Olympus. I had a lot of fun recording this and learning all the little tricks you had to do to minimize your deaths. I was very surprised that I got this far into the game in my real playthrough, this playthrough, and didn't die at all yet, because in my practice playthrough I died so many times to this stuff, like an incalculable amount of times to all this stuff, because it was pretty overwhelming at first, just how difficult this game was, how surprisingly difficult this game was, despite it being the small PSP title. So I'm expecting Ghost of Sparta is going to kick my ass even more than Chains of Olympus, because they really hit their stride in terms of handheld God of War with Ghost of Sparta. I think, anyway. I know Ghost of Sparta has a lower rating on Metacritic, but I like Ghost of Sparta a little more than Chains of Olympus. Not that much more. They're both pretty comparable to each other, but I like Ghost of Sparta just a little bit more than Chains of Olympus. But we'll get to Ghost of Sparta way later down the line. Here is the final of the steeds, the West Wind, Zephyros. Yeah, like I said, we very quickly go from Steed 2 to Steed 3 in like no time at all. After all that time it took us to get to Steed 1, now we're just jumping from Steed to Steed like that, like 2 seconds each. It's a pretty easy puzzle. We just have to move this incomplete statue. Obviously, it's not fully complete. It's been kind of destroyed, no key, so we have to kind of create our own sunbeam by destroying the top half of the statue and just using our sun shield to mimic the effects of that little light key that we saw earlier in the previous episode with the 2 completed statues and that small little puzzle room with... Oh, here we go. Final steed's been activated, so it's time for another little short cutscene. And that's it. We're done with the Temple of Helios. No more. Now we can just leave. Now we just have to make our way back to the beginning of the area so we can, get the hell out of here and move on and find out where Helios actually is. So we just slide on down, and here's another cutscene.
As Kratos left the temple, he was assaulted by the army of Morpheus, and again, he heard the haunting melody. But this time, he recognized it as the song of his daughter, Calliope.
Calliope? My daughter, where are you? Calliope!
Love this plot for Kratos, this whole chasing Calliope thing in the middle of his quest to save Helios. Now he's being challenged on his whole servitude for the gods by the fact that he may not have to serve them anymore because he might just get what he wants, finally, after 5 years of this bullshit. And that whole crazy shit that happened in Ascension with almost being forced to serve exclusively Ares forever and bring down Olympus for him forever. Now Kratos may finally get what he wants. All we have to do is kill this very easy army of Morpheus. These guys won't be easy soon enough, but these variants, the Morpheus variants of these soldiers and archers, are easy enough. They don't do that much damage. You don't have to worry too much about them. It's a nice send-off to the first half of the game, because this is the end of the first half of the game. Now, after this little section here and this next fight, we're basically done with the first half of the game. We move on to the far more difficult second half of the game. We get that big spike in difficulty moving on, and we really feel that this is God mode after this particular fight. This is going to be the last easy fight of the playthrough. So enjoy it while it lasts. I would recommend you use the Ifrit here if you start feeling a little overwhelmed. There were 2 Medusas here, so I just went ahead and decided to just use the Ifrit, so just to speed things up a little. Also QTE for the Medusa, because the Medusa QTE is very simple as compared to the Morpheus dog QTE or something like that. Make sure you just immediately kill the archers by pressing circle. They have low enough health that just one grab is going to automatically kill them, as opposed to the regular soldiers where it's going to take a few grabs to actually kill them. And I would recommend just using parries and magic and stuff like that too, very quickly whittle down their health. It's going to be a little different when we deal with the soldiers in the second half of the game and the archers in the second half of the game, but for this first half of the game, again, you don't have to worry. These enemies don't do nearly enough damage to be considered real threats to you. Not yet, anyway. Soon enough, they are going to become extremely, extremely dangerous, but for now, for this final fight, this is, easy enough. Worry-free enough. But that's it. That is the last fight of the first half of the game. Now, it's time to move on to the second half. And we're going to get a nice long cutscene to establish where the second half of the game takes place. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the first half of the game, everybody, because now it's time to move on to, well, not greener pastures, but definitely a more God of War feeling adventure. First, we have to activate the steeds, use our sun shield to activate the chariot, and away we go. See you in the second half of the game.
With the release of the fire steeds, Kratos was now in the hands of the beasts. And where they would take him, he did not know. As the steeds pulled Kratos away from the grip of Morpheus, they crossed into the underworld. But in the land of the dead, they could go no further, for these beings of light were not welcome in Hades. Kratos found himself on the very edge of Hades, the land where no mortal had set foot. Here, where the souls of the dead walk their fated path, Kratos knew that for him, this was merely the beginning.
Welcome to Hades, the second half of the game, and look, off in the distance in that tower, that's the sun, that's Helios, that's where he is. The game never outright states that, not really, at least not on screen or anything like that, but yeah, that is where Helios is, that tower off in the distance. Here is a look at the pause menu, because this was the end of a recording session, the beginning of a new one. Yeah, that is where Helios is. That is why Hades is lit up right now, like it is. It may be confusing because in God of War 1, we were in Hades and it looks kind of like this, and it's also lit up there, but Helios is not down there in the time of God of War 1, so it's kind of confusing. Why? There is a canonical explanation for why it's lit up now and not then, but, you know, whatever. The point is, Helios is here in Hades, in that tower off in the distance, and we have to go and get him, because obviously that's what we've been told to do, because apparently that's where Atlas might be hiding, even though we didn't see any giant man nearby that tower. That's where he might be, I guess. And here we have our final Gorgon's Eye. That is all 15. We now have our third and final health upgrade. Hooray! Full health just in time for the second half of the game. We still need a few more Phoenix Feathers for full magic, but thanks to those secret white chests that we've been getting, we now have enough health for the second half of the game, which is good news. Here's another God of War staple, fighting enemies while climbing on walls. We didn't see that in Ascension, I don't believe, because we didn't really have these traditional kind of climbing sequences in Ascension, at least not that many of them. But here we have them in Chains of Olympus, and as is the case with the classic God of Wars, you also fight enemies on these walls as well, so good on you. Don't worry, this is not where the game gets difficult just yet. We are in the beginning of the second half of the game. The difficulty has taken a severe spike upwards, but you're not going to feel it immediately. First, we're going to have a fight with some Medusas, some classic Medusas, the ones with actual, you know, snakes for hair and that kind of stuff. Basically, anytime the Medusa does her gaze at you, just go ahead and roll out of the way 2 times. That's enough rolls to avoid the effects of the Medusa stare, so you don't get frozen into stone. If you get frozen into stone, you will die immediately on the next hit, unless you break out of it quickly enough by pressing L1 and R1 repeatedly. You'll be seeing that later on in later encounters with the Medusa. Once the Medusa has low enough health, the QTE is very simple, just one button press and then just mashing circle, and then that's it. So taking on one Medusa is pretty easy. Just keep launching her into the air and keep doing the L1 square attack in the air to do some additional damage. When you're facing off with 2 Medusas, you don't want to do that, because the Medusa can freeze you and turn you into stone in the air. And if you're frozen into stone in the air, then you will die immediately when you land on the ground. So try not to be airborne when fighting more than one Medusa, because when fighting just one Medusa, you can avoid the gaze easy enough and launch her into the air and do all that stuff. When you're fighting more than one Medusa, though, you want to be very careful, because again, you launch one Medusa into the air, but the other one can turn you into stone in the air, and then you're fucked, because as soon as you hit the ground when you're stoned, you will crack and you will die, so you don't want to do that. But once you take care of one Medusa, and you just have the other Medusa left to beat, you can go back to your old tactics of just launching into the air and just attacking while in the air, and getting some free damage off that way, as you see. And that is the end of our first major fight in Hades. Well, not major fight, but our first real encounter, not counting the enemies on the wall that we saw earlier. We want to get rid of this, that stone guy, that poor stone guy there. That was a target of the Medusas. To come into this little secret crevice area to make that tricky little double jump, which you can die from if you're not careful. And then sidle across the wall here. It's something that we do a couple of times in Chains of Olympus. This is an optional time, but we do have to do this a few times for realsies in Chains of Olympus to get yourself another white chest. Hooray! This one is going to be a Phoenix Feather. We only have 2 to go before we are all topped off on magic. And we go ahead and speed up the sidling here because, you know, there's no real need to watch the full animation of that again. I almost died there. I wasn't careful. You should be able to make the double jump without landing on the ledge, but I jumped too early, so I did almost die. Be careful of those stairs. Those stairs will crack and fall, and you could die if you're not quick on the uptake. And here we go. This is our first major fight of the game. First of all, we're being introduced to the Hades variant of the soldiers. These variants are very tough. These variants can kill you in just a few hits. You want to go back to the reliable strategy of launching them into the air and then mashing circle as many times as possible. After you take care of that one soldier, you will have to deal with a couple of Cyclopses or Cyclopsy or whatever you want to call them. The Cyclopses themselves are not that bad to deal with, as I've already discussed in the earlier encounter back in Attica. They're very, very simple and straightforward. They're not fast. Their attacks can be easily rolled out of the way of, and you can do damage from a distance to the Cyclops. However, you do have to be careful when there's more than one. I got lucky because one of the Cyclopses kind of got stuck in the back there for a little bit. Obviously, he got out of there, but if you can get one of them stuck somewhere and keep them separated, then you're in good shape. It's going to be difficult later on when we're in small spaces and have to deal with multiple Cyclopses at once, but in this case we have a nice big arena to work with, so a nice big arena and a lot of health, but you will see that these guys are capable of whittling down your health pretty fast at this point, so try not to get too close, try not to take any hits from them. You can use the Ifrit if you want to speed things up a little bit, but I would really recommend saving your magic for real emergencies and just focus on your strategies to whittle down their health from distance. You will notice that I'm not taking care of that Cyclops even though the QTE command has appeared. That is because I know that there is going to be an additional wave after this Cyclops with more enemies, and I want to make sure that basically the next wave of enemies begins... Oh, I messed up the QTE. Basically, the next wave of enemies begins after you kill one Cyclops. So I wanted to make sure both Cyclopses were at low enough health where after I kill one and the next wave of enemies begins to appear, I can immediately dispose of the other Cyclops, so I could, not have to be overwhelmed and stuff with another soldier enemy that you saw took away almost all of my health with one fucking attack, and not have to deal with both him and the soldier and not have to deal with both the soldier and the Cyclops at the same time. This is a very difficult fight. This fight can kick your ass, and it very quickly teaches you that the second half of the game is very, very difficult as compared to the first, and you're going to have to really rely on your major strategies to make sure that that you don't die that often. After you take care of the one soldier that appears after killing one Cyclops, another soldier will appear. Make sure you dispose of him as quickly as you can, and then after disposing of that second soldier, one more Cyclops will appear, and this will be the end of the battle. One more Cyclops and one more soldier, and that's the end of the battle. So, at this point, I know the fight's about to end, so I'm using the Ifrit now just to whittle away some of the health. Be careful of those fucking soldiers. They do so much goddamn damage in hard mode. These soldiers are definitely one of the hardest enemies in the game. They're not the hardest. I would say that the Satyr bombers kind of hold that place for me in terms of the most difficult humanoid enemy in the game. But the soldiers, the Hades variants of these soldiers are a very close second. Obviously, I got rid of it now, so we don't have to worry too much about it, but God, the Cyclops doesn't even do as much damage as the soldiers do. And the Cyclops is the big, fat, giant fucking mythical creature, and the soldiers do more damage than the fucking Cyclops, so clearly something's busted with how they scale things in God mode. If those fucking soldiers do way more damage, and I'm more scared of those soldiers than I am of the Cyclops, so either way, once that third Cyclops is down for the count, we're done. Once that final Cyclops is down. Fourth Cyclops. Fight 4 Cyclops in this battle. Once he's down, that's the end of the battle. There's a secret red orb chest, which I went ahead and opened, so I had enough red orbs to level up my Blades of Chaos to level 4. It's very important in Hades to level up your stuff as quickly as possible. Hopefully you're already pretty leveled up at this point, but it doesn't hurt to be leveled up even more. We're not really going to be using these moves, these Fury moves, as you can see here. Really, I'm just leveling up the Blades of Chaos so I can have the additional damage, because that is going to be really important in God mode, because again, in the highest difficulties in God of War, it's more important that you do more damage so that you spend less time fighting enemies, because if you spend more time fighting enemies, you open yourself up to more mistakes, and if you open yourself up to more mistakes, you're going to take more damage, and if you take more damage, you will die. And we don't want that to happen that much, even though it's going to, because this game is pretty difficult from here on out. But to minimize that, we increase our damage output. By the way, destroy this wall back here. There is going to be another white chest, as well as a red orb chest, and a Medusa, but just the one Medusa, so you don't have to worry too much. You can very easily take care of it with the strategy we talked about before. Just launching it into the air and doing the L1 square attack to do additional damage as you come down, and just repeat the process again and again until it's ready for the QTE or until you kill it. As you can see. And off goes the head. There we go. Okay. And we collect our sweet, sweet reward of red orbs. And I believe this is going to be more red orbs. Yeah. After you've collected all of the Gorgon's Eyes and or Phoenix Feathers, any white chests that would have originally held a Gorgon's Eye or a Phoenix Feather will now hold red orbs as well as magic and or health. So make sure you collect those Gorgon's Eyes and Phoenix Feathers as early as possible. That way any additional white chests that you open will yield for you more of those sweet red orbs to more quickly upgrade your weapons to be ready for the more difficult second half of the game. Right? Pretty straightforward, I think. So the second half of the game is going to take place almost entirely within Hades. In fact, it entirely takes place within Hades. I don't know why I said it mostly takes place within Hades. We're basically in Hades now for the rest of the time. And it's pretty cool, because in previous God of Wars, you do spend time in Hades. Kratos spends a crazy amount of time in the Land of the Dead, despite the fact that he's not dead. This fight sucks, by the way. This stupid fight with the soldiers resulted in my very first death of the playthrough, which you will see tracked in the top right every time I die. So that's great. Anyway, Kratos spends a lot of time in the Land of the Dead, despite the fact that he's not currently dead. And we spend the most time in the Land of the Dead in this game, I believe. I mean, we spend a little bit of time in the original God of War. We spend like 2 minutes in God of War 2. And we spend one segment of the game, God of War 3 in Hades, but in Chains of Olympus, we spend the entire second half of the game within Hades. And I think that we spend the most amount of time in Hades in this game. We really get to explore a lot of it in this game as compared to the other God of War titles. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. The fact that they took something that fans are familiar with from the actual numbered entries and decided to expand upon it to make it a real legitimate area with a bunch of stuff to explore and a bunch of stuff to do and a bunch of plot relevance, not just being a stopover for Kratos in his various quests where he kind of dies but not really and just comes back like 2 seconds later. We'll be seeing that especially in God of War 2, him dying but then just coming back immediately because, you know, fuck it, he's not ready for death yet. He's got stuff to do. In this game, we actually spend an appropriate amount of time in the Land of the Dead actually exploring and actually seeing what it's really like and investigating what the hell is going on, because why would Atlas be here specifically? Why would Atlas take Helios down here to that tower? What is up with that tower? Is that tower special? Is that tower important? We will find out later, but basically, yes, there is very real significance for that tower in particular and what it represents and why Helios would be taken there. For now, though, we have ourselves another battle with a fancy cutscene to open it up for some reason. Just a nice fancy camera angle to open it up. This is a battle between Harpy Heads and 2 Hades. I don't know what these enemies are called, but I'm just going to call them... I'm going to call them Soul Reapers because they look pretty cool. They look pretty badass. Anyway, this fight's pretty easy. Just focus on the Harpy Heads first. Go ahead and take them all out. There's not that many. After that, you can go ahead and focus on taking out the two Hades enemies. It can be pretty tricky. But basically, the only way to reliably take these guys down are with parries. So you want to make sure you're good at parries, otherwise you're really going to suffer in all your encounters with these guys. Whether you do L1 and the square parry or L1 and the triangle parry, that's up to you. But you have to parry, otherwise they are going to kill you. Because their attacks are pretty difficult to dodge, they have pretty long range. This is the only reliable way to do major damage on them in a short amount of time. Yeah, doing parries. Thankfully, their QTE kill animation is very easy to trigger, just to waggle the left analog stick very quickly a little bit. I really should have waited until both enemies had the circle QTE above their heads, because there is a cutscene that interrupts you in between the killing of both of these enemies, and potentially you could be in a pretty bad spot when the cutscene's over. So I should have made sure that both enemies were close enough to death that I could have just mashed circle to do the QTE to finish them off, but I didn't. That's going to come back to bite me in the next encounter with these guys, but for now, you know, thankfully they took it easy on me this time, but they won't next time. Next time they are going to kick my ass a couple of times. It's too bad. Go ahead and open up these chests here. Like I said, in Chains of Olympus, the game is so short and small that chests are not really going to restock themselves. So you're not really going to leave an area and come back to it and find the chests stocked up with stuff again. So go ahead and open a chest. If you're in need of health and magic, go ahead and just open her up. That won't be the case with the major God of War titles, but this one, because it's so short and so small, yeah, go ahead and just open up a chest. If you see it, just grab whatever's in there, because it's not going to refill, so just go ahead and help yourself. Unless you're already topped off with health and just want to save some time, obviously, in which case you don't have to open it, you know? Who am I to tell you what to do? I'm not an Olympian god, I'm not that mean or anything. Anyway, we now move on to the final area of... Oh boy, they're doing landscaping right out here now. That's great. Anyway, we move on to the final area of Hades. And we have ourselves another battle. This is the exact same battle that we had earlier against the Harpy Heads and against the, what I like to call the Hades Soul Reaper guy dudes, the floating guys with shields, those guys. Same deal as before. Take out the Harpy Heads first, then deal with both of the Hades guys, the Hades Soul Reaper guys. You're going to want to make sure that you finish your combos with the triangle to destroy their shields. Obviously, I messed up a couple of times here because the layout of the room was just too small for me to maneuver in, and I got nervous, and that just led to two very unnecessary deaths, unfortunately. But the real strategy here is just go to the top of the room and do what you did before in the previous fight. Exactly the same thing that you did in the previous fight. They're about to hit, you parry, as you see, then press circle or triangle to deal some parry damage back to them, and that will be that. You will have dealt with them, and you will be able to move on with your day. In this case, I waited until both enemies had the circle QTE above their head, because otherwise, I'm going through the wall, because otherwise one of them might have cheap-shotted me after I went ahead and killed the first one. That's what happened in one of the deaths. You didn't see the whole thing, but that's what happened in one of the deaths. But they cheap-shotted me after I did the circle QT on one of them, which really sucks. But now we've gone ahead. Now we're at the very end of this area of Hades, and we're at pretty close to the end of the video. So we're going to go ahead and open up one more red orb chest. Hopefully the landscaper's not making too much noise. They're not, thankfully, at least not on my end. Hopefully they're not interrupting the recording too much. Now we have ourselves a short cutscene where we're going to be introduced to our next boss. That's right, it's been a while, but now we're about to fight our next boss, our next major boss, after this cutscene.
commands. I am a slave to no one, Charon.
We share a common fate, Kratos. The gods will release neither of us from our torture. Be gone! It is not yet your time, mortal.
Unfortunately, we do need this ferry to get to the light of Helios, to get to Helios himself at that mysterious pillar. So we're going to have to go ahead and fight our second boss of the game, Charon the Ferryman. Very easy. This is a battle where you have to lose, unfortunately. So thankfully, the actual fighting that you do before the forced loss situation is very easy. Charon only has 2 attacks. He is going to attack you with his sai. You can block that easily. There is no possible way to get hurt by that if you block. He also occasionally puts some distance between you and Kratos and shoots green fire orbs at you. And that's it. That's all there is to Charon the Ferryman. We're at the end of this video now, so I'm just going to start saying goodbye right now. Thanks for watching. This is the longest video of the series. Hopefully the landscapers did not interrupt too much. I did try to wait until they were gone, but unfortunately I'm not going to have time later on to do recording, so I had to record now in the middle of their landscaping, but hopefully it didn't get in the way too much. This was the longest video in this short 5-episode series. Next time we're going to have a slightly shorter video to ramble our way through, and then after that will be the end. It's only 5 videos. This is episode 3. We're at the very end of it now. Yeah, hope you enjoyed. Keep damaging Charon until he is about half health, and then he will go ahead and do the attack that you cannot dodge and force you to lose. For now, just parry his fireballs. Block his sai attack. You can parry that attack if you want, but he attacks so many times that it's better to just block it entirely. When he does this, when he goes up here, this is when you know you're at the end of the battle. He recovers fully, and he's about to shoot his bolt of fire at you. It's an instant kill, no way to dodge it. That's that. Bye, everybody. See you all next time.